some money for on that. So commissioners who are listening, thank you very much. But we're not set up to investigate a whole bunch of crime. Some of those sensitive things we can do, but other than that, I'm probably going to refer you to the sheriff's office if you have a complaint. Now, I bring that up because last year we had about 5,000 criminal cases come through the courthouse in Charles County. That is up a little bit. I know that some of the statistics that we have out there on the governor's website and everything show that crime is down a little bit. What you have to understand about that is that unless a police officer charges a crime, it doesn't count for what we call UCR purposes. All right? So all the folks that go straight to the commissioner's office, or if I file a criminal information directly, that doesn't count for those stats. So whether or not crime is up or down really doesn't matter. As far as murders are concerned in our community, the ultimate crime, there have been level. I started prosecuting here way back in the early 90s, and we've always averaged between 5 and 10 murders a year. That hasn't changed. We are fortunate that we have not been, this county I should say, has not been the victim, okay, of organized drug violence. And that's why we have been able to stay away from the high murder rates that some other folks have. Now, as I'm sure Officer Ribble can tell you, we did have an uptick in robberies. And I've been scratching my head for a while trying to figure it out why it is that we're having this whole rash of robberies. Well, I finally figured it out. I don't know if any of y'all are my age, but when I was a kid, I didn't have one of these things, a cell phone. I didn't have an iPad. I didn't have an iPod, cost $200–300, and I wasn't walking around in $300 or $400 sneakers or Parkers or whatever else it is, all right? And this rash of robberies that we're having really is kids robbing each other for these $200, $300, $400 items. That, like I say, when I was young, you didn't have that. I could go rob somebody. He didn't have anything more than I had, okay? I might get some lunch money, if that, right? So that's kind of the reason for the uptick in robberies, and we just keep on charging the guys, and we keep on going. It's not a good thing. Now, domestic violence cases, they have before, and they still do account for about 1/4 of the criminal cases in this county. 1/4, 25%. The most popular crime, if you will. And those are those cases that are reported. All right? Domestic violence is still a problem in this community, as are sex offenses, which is the most underreported crime in our community. All right? So that's where we are as far as that is concerned. I have, as far as the office is concerned, we have added a number of individuals and hoping to add more to address some of the domestic violence and sexual offense cases. What I mean by that, before I came here tonight, one of my attorneys came to me and said, Tony, I need to talk to you about a couple of cases, both of them sex offense cases, both of them involving family members, which most sex offense cases incur. And in both situations, the victim in the case was recanting, saying either it didn't happen or, well, it happened, but it was an accident. Well, that's a death knell for a criminal case, because as soon as the victim gets on the stand, if we put her on the stand and he says, well, didn't you say this didn't happen? Yeah, I did. Well, that's it, okay? By and large, unless you're really able to demonstrate some coercion or force by somebody or some influence on making this child, or grown adult for that matter, change their mind, the jury's probably going to find them not guilty, all right? And part of the problem that we have is that we haven't had in the past the personnel, just numbers, the manpower, to hold the hand, if you will, of these victims through this very, very long process, okay? In one of these cases I'm telling you today, the victim ends up living with the mother of the perpetrator. Now, it doesn't take a rocket science to see where the influence is coming from on that. Now, we can talk about, how that happened and all that, but that's kind of irrelevant. The point is that my office is there from day one on domestic violence cases, sex offense cases. And if we have the manpower to work with these victims and witnesses from day one. It's a very frustrating process for them because it takes forever and a day to get through the criminal justice process. We can be there for them, we can do a better job, and we're going to get better results on the other side of it. It's been proven over and over again through studies that when folks get professional help early on in the situation, then they're able to maintain and they're able to get through the process a lot better, and the communities get better results in convicting those people who commit these type of heinous crimes. All right, so that's one of the things that we're pushing for. We push for it from a budget standpoint. Last year, we're pushing for it again. So when you see your commissioners, tell them to give the state's attorney their money for victim witness assistance, okay? People get tired of me saying that, but we need it. I told you we have 15 attorneys in our office. If we just want to be an average for everybody else, we need 20, okay? You're looking at an office that has the highest cases per attorney in any other similarly situated county in the state, okay? And I'm talking like twice the rate, all right? We do about, our attorneys handle 450 to 500 cases a year. Everybody else is under 300, close to 250. So we need more people, but you all don't need to hear my woes about that. All right. Now let me just say one thing, and I'm not trying to be long at all here, but I do want to point out something that a lot of folks don't necessarily understand when they think about attorneys as the state's attorney. You know, the state's attorney and every prosecutor in this country is not your typical attorney. You know, if you go out and hire your divorce attorney, or you've got a contract dispute with somebody, hire an attorney, or whatever it happens to be, or you're a criminal defendant in a case, all right? That attorney's only loyalty had better be to what you need and what you want to get out of that case, all right? The state's attorney is not like that. Prosecutors are not like that. Our charge is not to win a case. It's not. Our charge is to see that justice is done. Pure and simple. Okay? And that's a big difference. So while my client, as the state's attorney, I suppose, is the state of Maryland, all of our cases start off the state of Maryland versus whoever, all right? My loyalty is still to justice. We don't go around making up evidence, ignoring lies, ignoring evidence that might help a defendant and all that. We don't do that. And you know what? Sometimes it means we don't win a case. Somebody asks me all the time, Mr. Covington, what's your conviction rate? And I can honestly tell you, I have no clue, because I don't care. And my attorneys, I don't track how many cases they've won and lost as far as trials are concerned. We don't do that. And if they're doing it in my office, they're not going to be there long, okay? Because if you're looking at how many cases you've won or lost, then you're not looking at the ultimate prize, and the only prize you're supposed to be looking at, which is justice. That is holding accountable those folks that committed crimes, but also making sure that the innocent don't suffer. And the innocent in that means victims, it does mean that, but it also means a guy who, even though the evidence might look this way, to look at it hard and make sure that you have the evidence to go forward with the case. I've been asked this question before too. Have you ever convicted somebody you didn't think was guilty? And I won't cuss here today, but the answer is no. All right? It would never happen. Prosecutors don't do that. If you don't believe the evidence shows the person's guilty, you don't go forward on a case. And I think that's very important for our citizens to know how strongly my office takes that charge. We're not going to run roughshod over people. Now, on the other hand, you've done wrong, we've got the evidence, you can best be sure, all right, that we're coming after you, and we're going to convict you. That's what we're going to do, all right? Because that's our job. Because you all would have that no other way either, right? So I just wanted to point that out. That's very important to me. I've been up here for like 10 minutes, but I have to say something about what I call the CSI influence on the criminal justice system. I am so sick and tired of TV, and I'm a child of TV, and I just love TV. But I'm here to tell you, Law and Order ain't real. CSI ain't real. I wish in Law and Order, they always have the scene where the prosecutor is sitting there across from the defendant and his attorney, and we're just talking back and forth about the case and that doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen, at least not here, okay? Now, more importantly, you know, I can't pull DNA out of the air. I just can't. I daggone sure can't get it 15 minutes into the show. All right? It takes us a good 4 or 5 months to get DNA. And hurry up and believe, please, that DNA is the rarity, not the norm. Fingerprints are the rarity, not the norm. All right? And when I'm smiling here, it's because I'm smiling out of frustration. The expectations have been raised so high from this fiction and fantasy we see on TV, okay, that it's impossible for real-world prosecutors to keep up with the expectations. So I'm here to disabuse you of those expectations, so forgive me. And I'm sorry if it's your favorite show and I'm ruining everything for you, okay? But I got a job to do down here, okay? And I need folks to have realistic expectations, all right? Doesn't mean you know, beyond a reasonable doubt, it's a very high standard that we have to live up to, and you should hold us to that. But folks should not be unrealistic about their expectations, okay? And also, I wish, God, I wish, that I had a team of 12 writers to sit down and write my 90-second summation, and I had my theme music pounding in the background as I reached a crescendo and told the jury to find him guilty. But no, I don't. I've got my unattractive self. You know, if I'd be Sam Washington, I'd be tall, I'd be thin, you know, if this was TV, but it's not. Okay, this is the real world. And when I'm standing up there talking to a jury, my attorneys are standing up there talking to a jury, guess what? Everything's coming out of their mouth is what they thought of and they said. All right? Based on the case. So, and more important than that, I got a letter the other day, and it was very helpful. It was from a lady on a jury, okay? And it was a sex offense case. They had found the person not guilty. And part of her letter was saying that, you know what? The victim just wasn't able to sell this thing to us, and on and on and on and on and on. And as I read this letter, I'm saying to myself, this isn't TV, okay? These are real people who've been victimized in real situations, and they're not rehearsed, nothing's written out for them. They're asked to get on the stand and tell their story, okay? And to, again, hold them to the standards of some actor or actress who's getting paid 50 grand an episode, who has nothing to do but rehearse their lines and cry on cue and all that good stuff, just isn't realistic. But I'm telling you, it is having an effect and an impact here in our county, throughout the state, and throughout the country. So I just wanted to disabuse some folks of that. Let me just say one or two other things. I know I'm taking up too much time. A couple of things that initiatives that we're really pushing here. One is domestic violence and sexual assault. I've told you what we're doing about that. But the other thing is crime prevention as a whole. To me, there are 3 phases of crime prevention. One is before people ever get into the system, identifying those people, those youth who are at risk, who might get into the system, and putting resources there, career, education, you know what I'm talking about, okay? We don't do enough of that, all right? But I'll leave that for other folks. The second phase of crime prevention, of course, is what we do, and what Officer Riffle does. You know, we arrest people, lock them up, and guess what? America's great at locking people up, okay? And I'm here to tell you, anybody who tells you that locking people up does not reduce crime, they're not accurate. It does. It doesn't do everything, and I'm going to get to that next, but it does work. And we can have an offline discussion about that if you would like, but I can show you the stats on that one. So that's the second phase, and we do a great job of locking people up. But the third phase is this. What do we do when a guy or gal has served their debt to society? What are we doing after that? We're not doing much, if anything. Some guy comes out of a long jail bid, there's really no help. And understand this, there is truly a small minority of our population that commits the vast majority of crimes. I am sick and tired of prosecuting and convicting the same person over and over and over again. How many repeat arrests have you had in your career, right? It's ridiculous. I've been doing this so long that now I'm prosecuting the sons, the daughters, some grandsons, some granddaughters, all right? Over and over and over again. Recidivism, recidivist, those people who repeat crime over and over after they get out because they have nothing else to do. What are we doing for those folks? Not much, if anything. 20, 30 years ago, they had some resources in the jails and this, that, and the other. but that stopped for whatever reasons. We need to get back to doing something. We have to figure this out. Otherwise, our crime is going to continue to be higher than it needs to be. Okay? Some folks are going to commit crimes no matter what you do for them, but there are some folks who just do it because they really don't have anything else to do. They don't have anything else to do. They don't have any skills. Doesn't take any skill to go out there and make $500, $600 standing on the corner selling drugs. I'm talking $500, $600 a night, and that's 2-3 hours of work. Okay? All right? So, and that's not an advertisement for folks to do that. I'm just saying. All right? We have to be realistic about these things. So that's one of my pitches, and right now as State's Attorney's Office, we are trying to pull together those interested parties, those organizations, and those people who see that we have to do something about recidivism together, and we're trying to attack that here in Charles County and throughout the state. So those are really our, that's kind of what we're trying to do in the future. Aside from the domestic violence things, those are the two big things that we're pushing on, and I could talk to you about the internal stuff that we're trying to do in the office, going high tech and getting to be a paperless office and all that, but I've been talking for about 15 minutes, so I'll shut up, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Got a couple of questions about scams and ID thefts. Are they on the uptick, or?
Well, yeah, they are. I mean, if you want to be a criminal, that's the thing to get into, because it's hard to crack. And I've been a victim of identity theft. Okay, and they're hard to crack, and the penalties are high, but the realistic penalties of actually going to jail, not so much. You know, the courts are more worried about those folks committing violent crime, which I understand. But you know, ID theft and thefts, things of that nature, they really wreak havoc in somebody's life. Again, I know from personal experience. They can wreak havoc on what you're trying to do. So I'm not going to say there's been any huge increase in it, but things are getting more and more complex. And you know, the more easy we make using financial instruments, getting money, buying things, and all of that for law-abiding citizens, it makes it that much easier for the criminals to engage in that activity. So that is something that we're fighting against as well, and the Sheriff's Office is fighting against, obviously. Yes, sir.
On crime, now generally everybody, when criminals do act,